We all know the deep frustration of self-sabotage. You decide to break a bad habit, you commit to making a better choice, and yet you find yourself repeating the exact destructive behaviors you consciously want to stop. It feels like walking into an invisible wall. In the book of Romans, the Apostle Paul isolates this exact dilemma. He realizes that wanting to do what is right is entirely separate from the actual ability to pull it off. He diagnoses the root cause as the sinful nature, sometimes called the flesh. This operates as an active, dominating force at work within us, acting as an internal operating system that drives sinful desires. This leaves humanity born into a tragic paradox. Our biological and spiritual default setting is hardwired to actively resist our own best intentions. Romans 8 shows exactly how hostile this sinful nature is toward God. It has never obeyed divine laws, and it is completely incapable of doing so. This diagram illustrates the strict law of returns found in Galatians 6. Living solely to satisfy this nature creates a vicious cycle. Unregulated desires feed into actions. Those actions produce decay and death, which then loops back to trigger even stronger biological desires. Human willpower is entirely useless against a feedback loop this entrenched. Paul concludes that under this nature, a person is quite literally a slave to sin, trapped in a hostage situation. Without an external intervention, every single person is caught in an inescapable gravitational pull that ends in total spiritual collapse. External rules couldn't fix this. The law of Moses was completely ineffective because human nature was too inherently weak to comply with the demands. So God introduced an external catalyst. He sent his own son in a human body to act as the ultimate sacrifice, accomplishing what rules and willpower could not. The specific mechanism of this intervention is detailed in Colossians 2, which describes it as a spiritual circumcision. This diagram models exactly what that means: a definitive, surgical severing. The absolute authority and control the sinful nature held over the individual is entirely cut away. By cutting this binding tether, the status of the captive changes. The soul is no longer a prisoner to its biology, but a living participant in its own liberation. Romans 8 outlines a new legal standing. Because the bond is broken, you have absolutely no obligation to obey the urges of your sinful nature. But spiritual freedom does not mean an immediate end to internal conflict. This vector model displays the internal war described in Galatians 5. The flesh and the spirit are two opposing forces fighting for territory within the mind. Because they demand mutually exclusive outcomes, you constantly fight biological urges to carry out good intentions. The inescapable chains of bondage have been permanently cut, but believers now stand squarely on an active battlefield, forced to deliberately navigate the crossfire. Surviving this battlefield takes active, daily participation. You cannot win this war by simply trying to be a morally better version of your old self. Instead, Ephesians and Colossians issue a direct command: actively strip off the old, corrupted nature and all of its deceptions, like throwing away ruined clothing. With the old nature discarded, the believer must now replace it. As Isaiah and the New Testament letters put it, you must actively clothe yourself with Christ and his righteousness. True freedom is maintained by this daily, deliberate act. You are swapping out an old, corrupted operating system for an entirely new spiritual identity. This alignment dictates your trajectory. Romans 8 explains that those who are controlled by the Holy Spirit focus their minds entirely on the things that please the Spirit. The final outcomes of these two mindsets are inevitable. Letting the sinful nature retain control of the mind acts as a direct pathway straight back to death. But the victorious alternative is clear. Allowing the Spirit to control the mind yields everlasting life and profound peace. The ultimate spiritual battle isn't won by sheer human effort or willpower. It is won by actively choosing to wear the liberating identity of Christ, securing lasting peace right in the middle of the war.